Hi, friends. I am so excited to invite you to the next Self-Love Archives event, Bloom, an immersive self-love experience, coming to Long Branch, New Jersey this September 5th from 4 to 9. It's kind of like one of those events where you come whenever you want to, stay for a while, and then leave whenever you need to. This event is meant to be this place, this space where you can connect with other people, with other brands, and basically rediscover yourself and who you are. There are going to be so many amazing activations that are included with your ticket, including drinks, food, a pop-up hair bar, a massage oil bar, some free loungewear. Like, this event is so curated and so put together to make sure that you find creativity and inspiration from the event, that you leave loving yourself more. There's so many more details, including the goodie bags and our vendors that will be in the space. I'm going to link all of that information, of course, in the show notes below, as I always do, or in the description down below. So make sure to check that out. I would absolutely love to have you. As a reminder, there is a special code if you are listening for you to get $10 off of your ticket to Bloom. Make sure to use the code SLA Podcast 10. SLA Podcast 10. And yes, I'm telling you right now because you don't have to wait till the end of the podcast episode, but I hope you listen anyway. Today's episode is a super exciting one because I am going to be chatting with the wonderful Marisa. And I think we can officially call her Marisa Anzevino, which I hope I'm saying that correctly, because she officially got married to the love of her life last month. But I'm having her come chat with you today on the podcast because she has an inspiring story. Not only that, I could not be planning this amazing self-love event without Marisa. She's an event coordinator and the owner and founder of Guardian Angel Events, and I'm super excited to have the opportunity to share her story with you, and I can't wait for you to give it a listen. I have the one, the only Marisa here with me, the owner and founder of Guardian Angel Events. And I'm so excited to have her here because I just told you guys all about Bloom, the self-love, immersive self-love experience happening in New Jersey on September 5th. And I could not do this event. I'm like, I say that so heavy, without her. So I'm so excited to have you here. Hearts. I'm so excited to have you here, and I'm so excited to share your story with everyone because I think I do think it's really inspiring, and I think
it's a story, all right.
Well, tell me actually, before you even really get into your story, tell everybody where they can find you and on socials, your website, and all that good stuff.
It's very simple. It is just Guardian Angel Events across the board. Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, which I've got to learn to get a little bit better at. My webpage, just www.guardianangelevents.com. I do everything from wedding, partial, full planning, bridal showers, baby showers, birthday parties, self-love archive events. You name it, I do it. Really just kind of there to give a helping hand. Planning a party is stressful, as you will know.
It's very stressful.
So I'm there to just help put all the pieces together and keep the day as smooth as possible. And I love what I do.
Perfect.
It's great.
I love it. And like I said, I really couldn't do it without her. So, I mean, if you need a party planned or you need any help with any of that,
right here.
Yeah, you've got Marisa. All of her information is going to be in the description down below. What do you think is, I guess, like, let's really dive into your self-love journey.
Yeah.
I would love to know, like, where do you really think that began for you in the midst of having this big support system, like your family around you and having Guardian Angel Events? Before we even like get there, like, where do you think that your self-love journey started?
Oh, goodness. I would really probably say it wasn't until somewhat recently. Middle school, high school, you're always trying to find yourself and who your friends are and what you're doing for sports and extracurricular activities and, having a social life. And I worked in high school. I played sports. I kind of did a little bit of everything. So for me, and even in college, same thing. I worked, had a great social life, great group of friends, was always out doing things, but you're growing at that stage of your life. You're growing in middle school. You're growing in high school. You're figuring out who you want to be in college. And it really wasn't until a few years ago that I really kind of figured out who I really was and who I wanted to be. And I would say now, I just kind of find myself, I'm usually like you would know, very like organized and OCD, and everything has to be a certain way. And I feel like lately I've kind of gotten into, still like that. That hasn't gone away. Hence why I do what I do. But I feel like now I've kind of understood that like I'm gonna go with the flow. Like,
yeah,
I want to enjoy my life. There's so many things that I still want to do in my life and be. So I always feel like I'm still always kind of finding myself as the journey goes on.
Yeah.
But I like where I'm at right now.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good.
I'm a wife. I'm a business owner. And I'm doing all the things that I wanted to do in my life. So I feel like within the last couple of years is where like it really started to hit me of who I was.
Yeah. Like coming to that place of like really understanding like this is who I am and this is who I want to be moving forward.
Yeah.
Where do you think in the past couple of years like did it like hit you?
Yeah. So that definitely, which I know we've talked about briefly, I lost both of my parents within a span of 3 months. So, and I'm an only child. So that was a big life change right there off the bat.
Yeah.
Huge. So for me, a lot of that was now realizing that me as an individual person had the sole responsibility of taking the legacy that my parents had and really bringing that into my life and to the rest of my life and bringing that to other people. So that was kind of really where, so my mom passed in October of 2020. So kind of a little bit in the midst of COVID, which we all know was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And, my dad was a little taken back of how to really go about his life without her, because she was really the one that kept it all together.
Yeah.
My dad was off the boat, born in Argentina. He came to America, didn't speak English. So he kind of grew up very differently and always kind of relied on his sister and his mom to really take care of him. A lot of strong women figures in his life. So my mom was one of those for him. And, unfortunately, when she passed, it was very tragic, very sudden. Nobody expected it. And that really kind of got him to a point of, oh my goodness, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
And then I then started to take the role of helping him get his life back on track.
Yeah.
And get him comfortable where he felt it was okay. And unfortunately, that didn't work out for him.
Yeah.
So when I lost my father, it was really like, okay, now it's all me. I got to do everything.
Yeah.
So I did, and it was challenging for sure, especially being by myself. There's really no other responsible person.
Yeah.
Other than myself. So I took on the challenges, however I had to take them, and I had a ton of help. Thank goodness for a lot of people in my family, big support system.
Yeah.
So that was always great. But I think that was really where just like everything took a turn.
You went from like one huge responsibility, like basically being like the woman figure that your dad needed in his life, to then taking on the responsibility, like an even bigger responsibility. So you went from like one to the next.
Yeah.
And
In a short span.
And yeah, in such a short span of time. And I can't imagine like I love this, like the paradox between something horrible that happens in our life where it causes us to grow or change in this way that we couldn't have ever imagined, because we don't know what tomorrow holds. We don't know what's coming next. But at the same time, we can see the complexity of just the portion or like the part of life that we cannot change.
Yeah.
Like we can't change certain things that happen. We just have to take them as they are. And we can either allow it to keep us in the place that we are in, which is currently in the, in the present, but it basically pulls us to, day after day become more in the past.
Oh yeah.
Or we can allow it to drive us to keep going forward.
Yeah.
And I definitely think that that's what you did.
Of course.
For sure.
At that point, there's so many things going through your mind of what's the right thing to do? Should I sit and sulk? Should I get up and go on throughout the day, even though you don't want to? There's so many emotions. And I think that was a big thing for me too. Like therapy at that time really was a huge help because it allowed me to just let everything that I was feeling in those moments just go.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel bad or I felt like I was bringing anybody else into the situation, even though they were already all involved.
Of course. But it's like you're not giving them like the burden of holding that for you.
Yes.
Because a therapist is just like not holding any of that for
Right,
you.
Right.
Yeah.
And they just...
That's their job.
Yeah, exactly.
It's their job.
And they just like allowed you to just not feel guilty for feeling the way you're feeling.
Of course.
No matter how. And you shouldn't. Like, I've come to terms with like, you should never feel bad for the way you feel, especially in situations like that.
Of course.
But you almost... It's so hard because you never know when those emotions are going to come.
Oh, yeah.
It's just a roller coaster. And you don't know when you're going up and you don't know when you're coming down and you don't know when it's going to go upside down or when it's going to go backwards. It's all out of your control.
Oh, yeah. I think grief is just, it's a wild roller coaster because it really is, even when you get to that, I almost like on the, not that the grass is greener on the other side. I think the grass is different on the other side is what I would say. The grass is not greener on the other side of grief. The grass is different. It's a different kind of grass from a different kind of place. But once you get to that like other side-ish of like passing through that really hard part of grief, it's not that you're not going to go back.
No.
It's not that you're not going to take steps backward sometimes.
No.
Because
you might feel like it.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you might feel like, oh my God, I'm going to that point. Like I'm going backwards. I'm going into the hole.
Sure.
And then, but you almost have to just let yourself do it.
Yes.
Like let yourself have a moment. Let yourself just let the emotions out. I've learned, and I feel so bad for my husband because he's my safe haven. So when we're home and I feel like that is where I'm most vulnerable to the emotions.
Yeah.
He does see a lot of that and he's so supportive. Unfortunately, my husband never was able to meet either of my parents. So that was always a big thing for me too. It's like, my God, I'm just so emotional about them, always in front of him, and he's never even met them, you know? But he's kind of taken now that whole role of learning who my parents were through me.
Yeah.
And kind of through stories and through what my aunts and uncles and my cousins and my friends would talk about, like everything that my parents did and the people they were. So he almost feels like now he does know them because of that. But it's totally okay to just let yourself go. It's okay.
I think you have to. And
You totally have to.
I want to kind of go a few steps back to when you were talking about how you let it all out to a therapist, right? And I think a lot of people sometimes think that there's like 3 different kinds of letting it out, right?
Yeah.
You could let it out to someone, a person, and you can let it out to a therapist, and then you can also let it out with just you.
Yeah.
But I think us as humans, we like the almost like compassion and like
a comfort.
the collaboration and like comfort, of having another human being. Like,
Absolutely.
we're not meant and not wired to go throughout life just by ourselves, right?
No.
We're not at all. So sometimes just like letting it out, just you, isn't enough.
Yeah, no.
So letting it out to someone who doesn't know who these people are, doesn't know what you're like talking about per se, like doesn't live or walk even, doesn't walk in your shoes, doesn't live your life, doesn't even live in your circle, if that makes sense. Because what I realized after my dad passed away was that I knew that everyone was going to grieve him differently because everybody had a different relationship with him.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, it was tough because of the relationship that I had with him to almost spill everything out with people who also had a relationship with him. Yeah. Because it could lean super supportive and it be a really great opportunity to like let it all go. But at the same time, it could also be just this difference of, maybe I'm talking to someone who didn't have a great relationship with him.
Yeah.
Or maybe I had a conversation with someone who did. So it's tough to...
It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, it really is, because you don't know how someone is going through their grief and what they're doing. I know that was so big. Like, I feel very grateful to like my courage and strength when my dad passed away, because I was so firm in my boundaries as to where I was at in regards to his passing.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't there for it, and I did have the choice to be there for it, and I made the choice to not be physically there for it.
Yeah.
Because I knew the mental toll that it would have taken on me. And that was not to put the burden essentially like on my siblings or anybody else. It was just that I moved to Florida.
Listen, both of my parents, I didn't get to see either of them before they passed. They also were both in Florida. I had spoken to my mom, I would say probably a day before, just through text, talking, normal things that you just randomly text your mom about.
Yeah.
And then I was at my cousin's football game, which I wasn't going to go to. And how all things align is crazy.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to go. And I was like, I got out of work early. Let me go to the game for a little. It'll be fun. It's right by my home. So I went, and we're there. The game is just about ending. And, my uncle gets a call about my mom. But at the time, I didn't know what it was about. He kind of walked to the side.
Yeah.
And, my aunt and my cousin and I are looking at each other like, something's not right. You just kind of get that feeling. So my aunt went over, and, I turned my head, and all I see is my aunt put her face in her hands. And I looked at my cousins, and I'm like, something's wrong. I'm like, maybe it's grandma. She was old. She had dementia. Yeah. Said maybe something's going on. Maybe she went to the hospital. No, not the case. We got a call about my mom. She just wasn't feeling well. She went home one day and from work. She told her coworker she was going to take a nap. She never woke up.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
And she had what's called a widowmaker's heart attack. So she kind of just had like an artery that clogged and just burst. And your chances of survival are like 1 in 4. You have like a 20-minute span to actually get yourself to the hospital.
Yeah.
Which would never have happened.
Yeah.
So, it's like the crazy thing like that. You're never going to be able to figure out why, and you're never going to get the answers.
Yeah. And you also can't hold that moment in time against yourself.
Never.
Like, I could have, I should have, I would have.
And I did that a lot in the beginning.
Yeah.
Not so much with her. I think maybe a little bit more with my dad. My dad unfortunately took his life because of the emotion that he was going through. And there was, of course, everyone was just, well, what if I did this? And what if I said that? And what if I called? And what if I was there? And it's always going to be a what if.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the only person who could have made that decision was him.
Yeah.
You know, we weren't going to change that.
Such a hard lesson to learn too.
So hard.
It's such a hard lesson. My dad did not take good care of his health, and we knew this, and we kept telling him, like, you know, stop working, take a better care of yourself, do this, do that. And you can't, it's like that horse saying, what is it called? You can bring a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink. Like,
of course.
And that's really what it is at the end of the day. Like, you
Absolutely.
are not in control.
You're not. You're only in control of yourself.
No, you are not. Like, you are not in control of anyone else except yourself. So to put the burden on yourself of someone else's choices,
right,
or for the universe's choices on how your life pans out or plays out, how your story plays out, is honestly ruining your life by putting that burden on yourself.
Absolutely. And I think that was
because you don't deserve that. No one deserves that.
That was a big thing that I think I took away from it was that, like, if you had known my parents and the people they were, there was no way anyone would have ever expected someone like my dad or someone like my mom for that to happen to.
Of course.
And they were such vibrant, bright people with even crazier personalities than me. And they were always the life of the party, and everyone wanted to hang out with them, and everyone loved them as aunts and uncles and cousins and sisters and a brother and a friend, that when they passed, everyone was in shock.
Yeah.
But then it was kind of like, you don't want to think of them in that way, in the way that they died. Like, you almost want to think of them as the person that they were. And, you know, that kind of resonated with me a lot. I was like, you know, the more I think about it, the more I allow myself to be that person that's like always like super depressed about it, or just, you know, doesn't talk about it. You know, more people feel like they can't talk about these things. And sometimes like it actually, I don't know if it's the same for you, but I feel like a lot of times I feel more comforted when I do talk about it.
Yeah, because I think when we do talk about really tough things like this, like other people
so many other people are going through it.
And other people feel, you know, of course everybody's story is different. Like, there is no comparison, but there are similarities that we can make in regards to the experience and how we felt about what happened, to the point where your story makes someone else feel comfortable to talk about their story, or same thing with my story or someone else's story, or our stories together and the similarities, you know, between them. Because my dad also had heart issues. I found him after he had a stroke. Yeah. Like, and they say if it was an acute stroke, it happened within, I had literally just gotten home from actually Sammy's bachelorette party.
It's crazy.
And I stayed a little extra at her house to eat something because we were starving. And I could have held it against myself that if I got home sooner, maybe I would have caught it. But that you can't do that. And I'm sure that there's someone else out there that's doing that to themselves, that's putting that weight and that blame that they don't deserve, because that's not something you'd be in control of either way.
No, you're never in control of it, unfortunately.
You have to take like whatever the universe gives you as it gives it to you.
The universe throws
it always works in your favor too.
It throws a lot at you. It does. That's for sure. It throws a lot at you, but you know what? You can only go forward. Yeah. You can go backwards if you choose to, but it's never going to be the right choice.
I always ask, like, I mean, in regards to like the self-love, I'm like, why don't you just choose yourself? And in this case, wouldn't you want to choose to move forward? Right. Wouldn't you want to choose to love yourself more? Wouldn't you want to choose to move forward?
And now it's great. Like,
it might be harder.
It's definitely harder.
But it's only going to get harder if you keep choosing to not go forward.
Yes, 100% agree. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I get so many people look at me all the time like, I cannot believe how strong you are. And after everything you've gone through, like you persevered and you moved forward. But, you know, my first reaction is, did I have a choice?
Yeah, literally.
I didn't.
Literally.
I had no choice. Yeah. I did what I did because I had to live my life. Yeah. And I couldn't let those things, although they were really hurtful and heartbreaking things happen to me and the people around me, I couldn't let that alter or deteriorate what was going to happen for the rest of my life.
Of course, yeah.
I mean, I was 25 when I lost my parents. I'm now going to be 30.
No, you're in your 30s era.
I can't wait, actually.
No, it's great. I kept saying that too.
I'm so
I was
excited.
just like, 30s era. But I'm actually really excited for my 30s era.
I can't wait. I say it as if I'm like so scared about it, but I'm honestly so excited.
It's funny
30s.
to like look back at like when you were 18, looking at like your cousin or something that's like 30 and be like, oh, you're old. And now you're like 30 and you're just like, this
30
is great.
is thriving, seriously.
30 is great.
And I can't wait for it. But no, you really truthfully, in at least my scenario, you really didn't have a choice, and you kind of had to do what you had to do to get yourself to that better point. So I really tried everything in my power, and that is not to say I do not have my moments or I don't still have my moments.
Of
I have
course.
moments every single day.
I think allowing yourself to have those moments too is so
but they're
important.
little moments, you know. I do tend to let it like bottle up a little bit, you know, and then all of a sudden one day I'm just like sitting in my closet hysterically crying.
Everything. I hate life. Yep.
But it's okay, because then afterwards I'm like, okay, I let it out. I feel good. I'm like, now we're going to move on to the next thing.
I'm so sorry who was around me for those 24 hours.
And we move on and we get past it. So I love the fact that I can tell my story and hopefully help other people in the sense of you're not the only ones, and you shouldn't feel bad. I think one of my biggest takeaways from it, and, you know, we just kind of recently, you know, with the wedding, it was a big thing. I really wanted to honor my parents a lot because they were important people to me.
Yeah.
And, you know, to not see your only daughter get married, you know, share a dance, walk down the aisle, you know, be there when I'm getting hair and makeup done. Like those little moments, you know, and it's so crazy because everyone's like, how do you do it at other people's weddings? I'm like, truthfully, I don't have an answer.
See, I cry, so.
I think in my professional setting, when I'm working, I don't let it get to me. I'm usually so crazy busy that it doesn't even process. But at other people's events, I'm definitely the one during the father-daughter dance that I just turn and walk to the bathroom, and then I come back 2 minutes later. I'm like, I'm good. I'm all good.
That was
I
me.
just didn't need to watch it. That's all. It's fine. But I think the biggest thing was, you know, during the wedding, and especially during all the planning, I wanted to figure out ways to, you know, honor them. So, you know, I had chairs reserved for them at the ceremony and also at the reception. And at one point I really wanted to dedicate a song to them. So both of my uncles, my mom's brothers, walked me down the aisle. And then I said, you know, I was back and forth. I'm like, do I share a dance with them? You know, what do I do? And it's such a complicated situation because you don't want to obviously hurt anybody's feelings.
Yeah,
but
or
you
like
also
take the value away from what it should.
Right.
Like, I guess, quote unquote, what it should have
Absolutely.
been.
So that's exactly what happened. You know, right from the bat, I was like, okay, they're going to walk me down the aisle. I'm going to share dances with them. Like, someone's always going to take the place. And then I kind of like took a step back and I'm like, you know, someone doesn't always have to take their spot.
Yeah.
You know, they can still be honored and not necessarily give that away. And I was so honored that both of my uncles were able to walk me down the aisle. And I know they were too. But I decided for the first dance that I wasn't going to share it with anybody, because that's still kind of something that at the end of the day, I'll always have with my dad, even though he wasn't there.
Yeah.
So I decided, I said, oh, I'm going to dedicate a song to them. And like, we'll bring everybody in.
Yeah.
Well, our wedding was so crazy that we didn't even get a chance to like have a slow song, which I'm super happy about.
Yeah. I saw pictures. It looked like the best time ever.
It was crazy. Best venue, best vendors ever. They're all on my Instagram too, if anyone is looking for some great
So good.
people.
So good.
Phenomenal.
So good.
But yeah, I really wanted to do that. And then, you know, the DJ's like, I don't know if we should do it. Like, everyone's kind of on the dance floor. I said, you know what? Don't worry about it. I'm like, let's just skip it. We're all enjoying. We're all
Good
having
DJ
fun.
to read the room.
So
good.
Phenomenal. But, you know, I was back and forth about if I was going to feel bad for not doing it. And then, you know, my husband, before we had gotten married, was like, you know, I want to look out for you. You know, I don't know how you're going to be emotionally the day of your wedding. I definitely did not know how I was going to be. I was preparing myself for a ton of tears.
Yeah.
And I did not cry once.
Oh my goodness.
I did really
wow.
good. I was pat myself.
I think I bawled myself. I mean, like, makeup artist is gonna stay for the entire
I think
time.
I was so just in awe of everything about that whole day, and it's something I dreamed of forever.
Aww.
So it was just like such a happy
so
moment.
Sweet.
And I was just like, you know, maybe it was a good thing we didn't do it. I think it would have maybe brought me into a place where I just kind of like wish they were. I mean, of course, I wish they were there, but.
But even more so,
would have
like,
set me back.
Yeah, it would have just like literally put you in that place of like,
and
I
then,
wish they were
you know,
here.
before that, we were talking, and you know, he was concerned about how I was going to be. He was concerned about he was going to be, and also how everyone else was going to be.
Yeah,
you know, it was definitely going to be an emotional day,
of course,
in itself.
Yeah,
for good reasons, but also for the reasons of them not being there.
Of course,
and that didn't just affect me; that affected a lot of people.
Of course, yeah.
And you know, I kind of got a little annoyed. And I'm like, it kind of bothers me that, and I don't know if you feel this way, but like, it kind of bothers me that like, sometimes I feel like now that my parents have passed, and you know, you've gone through the whole cycle, but now it's 3, almost 4 years. And I always feel like I'm the person who's looked at as the girl who lost her parents.
Yeah.
And it almost just feels not shameful, but you almost just feel like, don't look at me that way.
You're like, I'm more than that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's just something that always has like been circulating in my head, you know, ever since that. In the beginning, you know, it was understandable.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, okay, I'm good. Like, I'm married. I have a beautiful home. I have a job. Like, I'm doing okay. Yeah. Like, I'm not doing bad. Yeah. I'm doing the best I can for what was,
of course,
for what cards were dealt for me.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I just don't want people to just always think of me like that.
I think, does anybody say that to you?
No one ever says it, but I think it's maybe more just in my head.
It might be you, because I think we look at ourselves in the mirror, right? And I say this a lot about, because I struggle a lot with like my weight and whatnot. And, you know, I'll look at myself in the mirror and I'll think this, that, and the other thing like about myself. And then I'll remember that moment 2 years later when I gained more weight and I'm still looking at myself in the mirror that way. And I look at that photo when I remember taking that photo saying,
yeah, like,
I don't look good. And now here I am in the present looking at that photo being like, girl, you look fucking great. What do you mean? It's kind of like that. It's
like when you're in high school and you wish so badly that you were like skinnier, and now you look at yourself and
you're like, are you joking? But even
if only I look like that now.
But even when I look back at pictures of myself from like a couple of years ago, because I know that my life changed drastically, of course, like after my dad passed away. And I moved and I started dating my boyfriend. Like, so many different things changed. And I can't put that burden on myself of like how my life changed. And I think honestly coming off of birth control was a big part of that too. And just like I gained weight. And I would look back at pictures of myself like now, even now, like I catch myself doing it, even though I'm hyper aware of it now, of course. And I'd be like, why? You looked great. Yeah. What do you mean? So I think it's similar to that in that. And it's funny because I do it in so many ways, and I'm just thinking about how much I create this persona or this person or this group of people that are hating on me or
telling me who I am.
Yeah.
When I get to choose who I am.
Yeah.
You get to choose like who you are. That's not up for debate. That's not anybody else's choice. So as much as like you might go throughout the day, or in that moment when your parents, should have been there and were, supposed to be a big part of that day, you might have felt like that more. Almost like all eyes are on you, but not for the reasons that you would want it to be.
Yeah.
The eyes are on you because potentially like the ego part of you is like, all these eyes are on me because they know what I've been through.
Yeah.
Not to celebrate me on this day.
Yeah. No, I mean, we had 220 people at our wedding.
Wow, that's how many people are going to be at Bloom.
But everyone there was such high energy, and it just felt so good that it was almost like for the first time since that, you could just feel like everyone was just so happy to like be there and be a part of it and witness it. Like it was such an incredible feeling. So thank you everyone for making that day even more spectacular than it already was. But that was like, it was always something that was in the back of my head.
Of course.
And
it's part of your story.
It is.
But it's not who you are.
It's not who I am. It's not. I think the strength and everything that I persevered through it is who I am.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, like I just want to live my life and be able to tell their story. Like I feel like that's part of me is being able to like tell everyone who they were.
And I think you are, because you said earlier that they were the life of the party. And what do you do now?
I know.
You plan
parties?
parties?
I plan them.
I think you're doing such a good job at bringing them into, or like basically keeping their souls alive with you in this place. Hey, like
they're my guardian angels. Hence the name.
Is that when you started Guardian Angel?
It was about let's see, my dad passed in January, so that July, I actually went and interviewed. I was gave myself a little bit of time. I left my job that I was currently at when my parents had passed so that I can kind of figure out everything.
Yeah.
I was in Florida for a while, selling the house, moving things, figuring out what I wanted to do with my life. I had also, in the midst of all of that, had broken off a previous relationship, and I also had to put down my little kitten. All in a span of the 3 months. So
when
it was
it rains, it pours.
Yeah,
right?
really, truthfully.
When it rains, it pours.
As it's like raining outside right now.
Yeah, it's literally pouring outside right now.
But I went on an interview. I said, okay, now I finally like have everything settled. Like, let's start figuring out where we're going to be now. And I went on this interview and it went really well. It was at a hotel and venue, so I was going to be running like all of the events, and it was like everything I wanted. Like I always wanted to just kind of like work events specifically for one location. Yeah. So that I can like learn the ins and the outs of the whole entire place and then kind of just like work all of the events through it.
Yeah.
Got the job offer the next day. Great job offer. Benefits, this, that, salary, the whole nine. And I just stared at it. And I was just like, I don't know that I want it. Like, I don't know what got into me. And then I looked at my aunt and I was kind of just like, I don't think I'm going to take it. It's working in the event industry. I mean, as you can tell from planning like self-love archives. And,
SOS?
Yeah.
It's a lot.
It's a lot of labor and time and, working at a venue is just crazy. Like you don't have
really
set
long
schedules.
Hours, yeah.
You kind of can't. I'm a very structured person. I like structure.
Yeah.
So if I don't have a schedule and I don't have structure to my life, I feel totally out of whack.
Yeah.
And I think that was a big takeaway for me. I was like, I've done that before. I worked in Staten Island. I was driving 45, 50 minutes there and back every day. And then on the event days, I wasn't leaving work until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. That's and then
crazy.
still driving all the way
Yeah.
home. And I was living by myself, and I almost like flashed back to that. And I was like, do I want to do this?
Yeah.
And I'm like, maybe I open my own thing. I've gotten enough experience. I've pretty much worked in every aspect of the wedding industry from high school all the way through to college. So I was like, I think I kind of got this. I think I can do this. And I sat with my uncle, who's my financial advisor, also my uncle. And we sat down and I was like, can I do this? Like, do I have the ability to take this risk? Because if I'm going to take the risk, I'm going to do it now.
Yeah.
Before a family and, my life gets even more crazy with all of that. Let me do it now. While I was single, I didn't really have anything holding me back. So I took it and I ran with it. And here I am now, almost 4 years later. And, it's great. It's not something where it's still full time. So I still work at a separate job to kind of just fill the gaps because nobody's having a party on a Monday. So, and, I do it because it makes me happy. It's essentially why I do it.
Yeah.
It's not really
That's
about
important.
the money. And, I just love helping people. I love how happy people are at the end of an event that I work. It just, I don't know, brings me joy.
Yeah, I love seeing like the vision come to life. I think that's my
Yes.
favorite part of it
Yeah.
is like really seeing the vision come to life after so much planning, so many details.
Yes.
And
And I'm
all the
all
things.
about the details.
Yes. And it's like you don't even realize how many details go into
There's
it,
so many.
especially if you're just an attendee.
Well, and it was crazy too, because then when I was planning my wedding, I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be like a lot. I love everybody so much. I think I'd really rather plan other people's than myself. There were too many options. And I
don't know
loved
what to
too many
choose.
things that I was just like, this doesn't go with this and that doesn't go with that.
Yeah.
So that we're just going to have to settle on one thing and just move on.
I feel like I'd be like, can I have 4 different themed weddings?
well, that was my thing.
Which one do you want to come to?
For my whole life, I wanted to have like a wedding in July, and it was going to be like not 4th of July themed, but like wine colors and like navy and gold.
Yeah.
Don't ask me like where I got that. And then I ended up with a black and white wedding.
It happens.
Neutral.
It's fine.
Which I loved because
Yeah.
it was like I didn't have to figure out all of the if, ands, and buts. Like everything was kind of just like one set thing.
Yeah.
And it made it so much easier. My husband just actually gave me praise the other day. He said, you really did a good job. I was like, thanks. I was so happy about that.
You're like, thank you for noticing.
Now you understand what I do.
Now you get it.
Yes. For everybody else. And it was so fun to finally do it for me, but I'm very happy that it's over.
I hear that
I
a
missed
lot.
the day, that's for
Of
sure.
course.
I would go back to that day every day for the rest of my life. But I am so happy that it's over.
But what I want to ask you actually, now that we know what you do.
Yes.
We know what your focus is. We know what you're doing together in collaboration with me and the Self Love Archives. But I want to know just a little bit about Marisa. Like, who is Marisa?
Oh, God. I'm a lot of things. A lot of people say I'm the loud, crazy Italian, which I sure am. I am newly married. Hello. My husband, Nick, is great. We met about 3 years ago. Just recently got married in July. And really, my life is it's just always something. It's always fun. It's always a little crazy. Come from a really, really big Italian family. Some right off the boat. Some people still in Italy. And, I also have that Brooklyn side. My mom is from Brooklyn. So we're just a big dose of energy is really what we are.
I love it. I love it so much. And tell me, what is next for Guardian Angel Events? What are you working on? What's happening?
That's a tricky question. It's a tricky question because I kind of have to take into consideration what's happening in my life. Right now we're obviously working on Bloom, which is super exciting. September 5th, you better all be there.
Tickets are link to tickets is going to be in the show notes, description, link in bio, all the places, or you can literally just DM me or Marissa and be like, I want to buy a ticket to Bloom.
It's everywhere. So, working on that was kind of really exciting because this is kind of my first not wedding, or more, I guess you would say, special occasion event.
Yeah.
That I'm working on. There's a couple weddings. I have a couple of smaller parties, but this year was kind of a year of really picking and choosing what I wanted to do because of the wedding and everything leading up to it. And I did not want to
Overwhelm yourself.
Yeah, overwhelm is an understatement. But yeah, so I kind of took a little bit of a null this year. And next year, like, I'm really hoping to just kind of expand my horizons on the different types of events that I can work or help with.
Yeah.
It's not always about weddings and baby showers and birthday parties. I kind of really, I think this like opened me up to kind of wanting to explore a little bit more about what's out there.
Yeah.
I do like a lot of like the vendor events, like the shows. And so I meet a lot of people and it's such a big industry.
Oh yeah.
The hospitality industry is just massive and it's a beast. So there's so much out there that you can experience and learn. So I think I kind of wanted to take next year to kind of really see what else I can do.
Yeah.
But then there's another part of me where my end goal is to be a mom. So we'll see where that journey takes me. But being a mom is probably my ultimate goal. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to experience that. And, I've had so many years under the belt of Guardian Angel events and everything leading up to it that I'm hoping that I can still take that while having a family and being able to balance it all. So there's a lot, I feel like, in store.
You definitely can. Women are so fucking strong.
Yes.
Like, so fucking strong. They are absolutely capable. We are absolutely capable of so many different things. And I think that we all put a lot of like, obviously having kids is tough. It's hard. It's a lot.
It's like a whole nother job.
And I don't even really, and I don't even really know what that means exactly because I don't have kids. But all I know is that I know my strength now. I know the strength that I've, brought out of me from the things that I've gone through. And I think that I am going to bring out even more strength within me when, if that day comes like for me, or if that day, comes for you, that you'd be able to do it all. I do believe you can do it all.
I think I can too. It's just
it's a lot, but it's like
there's only 24 hours in the day.
Of course, but that's 24 hours is a lot of time. Obviously, minus your a good 7.5 hours of sleep.
That I definitely get. Probably not so much once I decide to have children. I would be getting 7.5 hours. But yeah, I think there's still so much potential for what I do. And that's really the goal. I want to just see what else is out there. And maybe it's not planning a wedding. Maybe it's, giving my advice or kind of just sharing my experiences and helping other people be able to like kind of do it on their own too. There's a lot to do in this industry and it's constantly expanding. So it's going to be a lot of figuring out what that next thing is going to be. But Guardian Angel events will still stay and we're still planning tons of weddings.
Yeah.
So I'm still ready to party and ready to decorate because I love that.
I love it so much. What would you tell someone two parts.
what would you tell someone the most important lesson or the most important thing that you want them to take away, to someone that is also in the event industry, in the hospitality industry, that wants to own their own business and wants to really just make something of themselves?
I say do it. Because sometimes you're never going to be able to plan when the right time to do it is. So whether it's now or whether it's 5 years from now, 20 years from now, when you're retired from your career, whatever stage of life you're at, and you really feel like you want to take it on, do it. Because there's no
right time.
There's no right time. And there's also sometimes not really that much of a risk that you think there is. There's always something you can fall back on.
Yeah. It always looks bigger than it might actually be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, don't get me wrong, owning a business on your own, I mean, that's another thing too. You get to pick and choose. Like, I chose to keep my business to a point where I am solely the only one working. I do it because I enjoy it and I want to help others. So to me, it's not about having 60 events planned in a year. It's about helping the people that reach out to me that need my help, that need my guidance. So I never feel like, oh my goodness, I need to go out and advertise and I need to do all these things and I need to get so many people to book with me. It's more of just, when they come, they come.
Yeah.
And when they need the help and when they need somebody to put everything that they have envisioned together for them, I'm there for it.
Yeah.
And I can kind of do it on my own time, which is great.
I love doing things on my own time. And what would you say to someone who has also lost both of their parents and is trying to find a way forward?
There's so many things that, like, I could say. As you know, too. Like, you're kind of in that same situation. It's really just, it's so cliche, but, like, it's all gonna be okay. It is. It might not feel that way or seem that way, but as days go on, weeks go on, months go on, years go on, it's always going to be there. You're never going to forget about it. You're never going to not think about it or feel a certain way about the situation, but that's okay. Like, it's all going to be okay in the end. And that's something that I wake up and tell myself every single day, that, like, it's just another day. You're going to make more memories and you're going to make somebody else happy or do something good for somebody or for yourself. And like, those things are the things that are going to make you feel good. So I would really just say to really just take everything day by day, but understand that it's totally okay to feel the way that you're feeling. And when you feel that way, take a minute, take a second, go in the bathroom, breathe. Have those moments. They do get better. I think it takes a little while. You know, when you're in the midst of the heat of it all, it doesn't feel like they're ever going to go away. Like, you're in your head like, oh my God, I'm going to feel like this every single day. This is terrible.
Yeah, and even saying, like, it's all going to be okay. Like, it is such a cliche. But it's true.
But it's true.
It's the worst thing. It was the worst thing when people said it. Like, oh, it's going to be okay. Like, shut the fuck up.
Like, don't tell me it's going to be okay.
Like, sure, okay, fine. Like, but no, like, and it was a lot. But when you put it into perspective, almost like you said, it day by day, week by week, month by month, year by year, like, if you were to keep track of your days and overall at the end of the day, like, how that day went, like, if you were to rate it, I guess, give like a rating on your day, you would start to see that
the rating in regards to your day or how you're feeling in regards to your grief, as long as you're continuously like pushing yourself forward, you would see that it would get better over time.
It
And that
does.
doesn't mean it's linear.
No.
That just means that
you're going to have days where like that number
it's like the
is
stock market.
really high. And then you're going to have other days where like sometimes it's not even there. Mm-hmm. Like you don't even realize it almost.
Yeah.
And then like a week goes by and you're like, wow, I had a good week.
Yeah.
Like I did good. You almost like want to like congratulate yourself for it.
Yeah.
And that's also a totally normal thing to do too. Like tell yourself that you did good. Tell yourself that you felt better that day than you did the day before, because like I said earlier, like it's a roller coaster.
Yeah.
You never know how you're going to feel. And even if that wasn't the scenario, no person wakes up knowing exactly how their day is going to go.
Yeah, no, not at all.
So you have to really just move forward with that and go into your day as if you're going to have a good day. And if it gets to you, that's fine. Let it get to you.
Yeah.
Have your moment. Pick yourself up. And you move on.
I think like it's expressing like gratitude for those days that
Yes.
you did make that little step forward, even if like you haven't been brushing your teeth for the past like 10 days because it's just too much.
I agree.
You know, it's just too much. This small thing is just too much. Like expressing gratitude that you finally did do that today, and there's nothing to like
There's nothing
be
wrong with
embarrassed
that.
about it, or you know, or you finally stopped rotting in
Yeah.
your bed all day and you actually just stood up and put clothes on.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's different for everyone too. And I guess, you know, you think about when you lose a grandparent or, you know, a pet and things like that. There's so many different traits of grief. And sometimes they're so hard to describe. So I think too, you might like feel a certain type of grief that other people will have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And you're just like, how do you not feel that? Like, what do you mean you don't want to just curl up in a ball in the corner and just like not do anything?
Yeah, everybody's experience is so different when it comes to grief. Like,
Yeah.
I think I was so in my head, to like add to the conversation, I was just so in my head when I was going through grief, because I had already gone through a lot of shit when I was much younger, and I had already experienced grief in like a couple of other ways, because I think we can go through grief not even just when you lose someone to death. Like
of
we
course.
can go through grief by changing to be a different person. We can go through grief when we break up with someone or lose a friend or something along those lines.
Grief is brutal.
Yeah, it's definitely a really interesting
It takes a toll on
emotion
you.
or interesting feeling or thing that we go through as human beings. And I think I tried my best not to judge myself for it. And I think I had a lot of like kind of how you were feeling about yourself at your wedding. Like I had a lot of people, quote unquote people in my head, not even real people, judging me for the way that I was going about my grief, because I was like, is it looking like I didn't give a shit? Is it looking like I got over my dad passing away really quick?
Yeah.
And I don't think that it was that. It was just that I chose to deal with it in the ways that I did. I allowed myself to like literally cry my eyes out
And
for
there
hours
are
upon
people
hours.
that their grief is not even showing that.
Oh, yeah.
Some people don't show grief at all.
Oh, yeah.
And you question.
like behind doors, like you
Yes.
don't obviously know what's going on.
I think that was a big takeaway too. Like prior to losing my parents, you know, I had gone through grief. Obviously, I had lost, you know, grandparents and other people in my life. But it wasn't until then that I really realized,
like the depth that grief actually can go to.
yeah, and just like how many other different phases of grief there is.
Oh, yeah.
Where like, you know, you always wonder like prior or when you're younger, you're like, oh, why aren't they crying? Like, why are they not upset? But really, like that is their grief. Like not crying and not showing that emotion is their grief.
Do you want to know what my favorite part of grief was? The dark humor phase. And I think honestly, I've been in that phase for a really long time, and
It's
I don't know if I'll ever leave it.
I think my thing, my dark phase of grief is when I'm just like, oh, they're still here. you know, like I like deny it. I'm like, that never happened. I don't know what. It was all a dream.
Sometimes it does get you like that. Like I said in another podcast episode with my friend Kathleen that grief is so weird because like you look out after it all happens, like you look out the window and everything, it's almost like everything went to 4K. Like you're viewing life in 4K.
But yet
now.
nothing else stops.
Yeah.
Everything keeps
so
going
weird.
Except for what's happening in your life.
It's the weirdest like paradox.
You blink your eye and you're just like, wow. Mm-hmm. And now it's like almost 4 years. 4 years. Like I can't even remember sometimes like what my schedule was last week or just a month ago. I look back at pictures and I'm like, wow, I can't believe that was like a month ago. But 4 years, it's crazy how the life goes on.
Yep.
But yet they're always still here. The only thing I don't have is the physical presence of them or like pictures. I feel like is really hard.
Yeah.
To like scroll through your phone and just be like, my God, I'm still scrolling and I still don't have a picture of them.
Yeah.
You know, like I always want to post for like their anniversary or for like their birthdays. And I find myself scrolling all the way to the top of my camera roll. And I'm like, wow, like it just hits you in those sense where it's just like, I don't even have a picture in the last 200 pictures with them in it. Like that's just wild.
Yeah.
So there's certain things that like just kind of hit you like that, that you're just,
there's just so many facets of it.
there is. It's a crazy game.
And I really think they hit you differently than like so many other things. Like grief hits you in ways that like other emotions don't really hit you like that. Like it's a very unique
It really is.
place.
It's not a place that I wish upon anybody.
Yeah. But we will all go through it.
Yeah. Everyone goes through it at some point in their life. Unfortunately, you know, for us, it was just at a very early stage of our life where I think it just kind of, it put all your cards on the table at once. It's like, here's your life choices. Here's your career. Here's your grief. You know, everything was kind of laid out and you almost had to like stare at it and be like, okay, which one do I choose
It's like
first?
the climax of your entire life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And everything was kind of just like all put out in front of you and you had to pick grief first and then worry about everything else after the fact, which was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
But now we're back. The cards are re-dealt.
Yeah.
And there's so many other good things coming. So it's what you have to do.
One day at a time.
One day at a time.
So I have something exciting. So actually, the day that this podcast episode goes up is August 11th. And I will actually be at the Self Love Archives 1-year anniversary, the 13th, which is
Go, girl, go.
So crazy to say. I had been sitting with like actually creating the Self Love Archives for a really long time. And I wanted and have been sitting with coming out with a card deck that is a thought-provoking card deck, a card deck that pushes you to get yourself to go deeper with yourself in your own self-love journey. Because I think it's so incredibly important, especially as we talked about like in today's episode with you, like how incredibly important it is to push yourself to go deeper so that you can learn more about yourself, so that you can learn to love all of the parts and pieces of yourself, because self-love is not rainbows and butterflies.
Yeah, no.
At all. At all. So
you get there.
yes, you do. You get to the rainbows and butterflies. It's all encompassing. It's the storm, but it's also the rainbow.
Yeah.
It's all of the above. It's the sunny days. It's the cloudy days. It's the pouring rain outside right now.
It's the really crappy no sun at all days.
Yep.
But it's
and
good.
Sometimes it's the hurricanes and the tornadoes, and sometimes it's just seeing life in 4K. So it's really cool. And I actually am going to have you pick a number because I physically don't have the cards yet.
Okay.
For the Love Yourself More deck.
Okay.
Then I'll have you pick a number, and I am going to basically count the lines to that number. So there's 100 cards in this deck.
Oh my goodness. Okay. 100 cards.
And as you think of a number, This is the first time you guys are hearing about this card deck, and I'm so grateful. It's just very aligning that this is happening like on the year. I just realized too as we're sitting
That's
here.
crazy.
How crazy is that? Perfect conversation about it, a conversation to have in regards to it, because like this is a deep conversation. This is a conversation that's not easy to have. So I appreciate you having it with me and being here. And of course, with Bloom around the corner, like that's the goal of Bloom is for you to be in a space where you feel connected, confident, and just leaving the event loving yourself more, whether that's because you were in a space that made you feel more creative and connected, whether you were able to, I just keep wanting to say the word connect, like connect in whatever way that means to you.
I think that is a good word for it, though. I mean, it's a place for businesses to connect. It's a place for people to connect. It's a place to just really enjoy what's around you in the moment.
To like just really just empower yourself. And to leave feeling like you actually got something out of an event.
And to hang out with us.
Because we're fun. So what is that number that you came up with?
I'm going with 15.
15.
Okay. Start counting. She actually really has the whole book written down.
I have it all right here. All of these questions were written with love. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, this is a really good one. Okay. What do you struggle to let go of?
Ooh. Hold on, I gotta think about this for a second.
Thought-provoking. As Marisa thinks of her answer, the card deck is, as I mentioned, meant for you to go deep with yourself. There is going to be 3 different categories in this card deck: deep, deeper, and deepest. And I feel like this might be one of the deepest ones.
But that's okay, because I feel like
we got
kind
deeper.
of resonates with what we talked about.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like one of the hardest things for me to let go of is feeling bad for myself. And not just in the sense of what I've gone through and the challenges that have been brought to me recently in my life, but just letting go of the things that always made me think, oh, well, did that person, not like me because I said that? Or, did I do the right thing? Did I make the right decision? Always just getting in my head of the choices I make and not just letting them pan out. So I think that's something that I truly haven't figured out how to just not let myself feel bad.
You don't actually know how it's going to pan out.
You don't.
I love the idea of that. You don't actually know. Even if you think something is going to be positive, you don't actually know if it is.
No.
You have no idea.
Not until the end.
Yeah, not until it actually happens. So maybe that's how you move forward in letting those things go, because I know most of the times when I do that, because I do that too, I always am like, oh, did they think I was a bitch? Did they think I was mean?
Yeah.
They didn't even notice.
Yeah.
They didn't even think that
They
at all.
think the opposite.
Yeah.
And you're just like, wow, really?
She's so nice. She's so kind. And I'm like,
okay, we are kind and nice.
We are nice. Like I know that I'm a kind, nice person, and I'm sure that
are.
you do too, but sometimes you just question it.
Yeah.
And you wish that you could just like let
I hate
go.
to say there are many times where I'm just like, wow, I just sounded really bitchy, but it happens. We're adults. It's okay.
It's fine.
It is what it is.
Well, thank you so much
Of course.
for being here. I appreciate you so much.
I loved being here.
This was such a good conversation, and I hope that you guys found it inspiring and all the things, and hope that you connect to Marissa's story. Again, so grateful that you're here and that you got to share it with everyone.
Of course. I loved being here, and I think it's really important to share, really hard instances like this, because like we said, we're not the only ones going through it. So it's totally okay. And if you want to DM me to just vent about your situation, I'm all for it. I'm all ears, and it's really opened me up to just like being there for other people going through it too.
Yeah.
Because you really never know what someone's going through. So
No, you have no idea.
I always take that
Yeah.
with a grain of salt and just take that with me throughout my day, that someone else could be probably going through what I did, if not worse. So I'm always here.
Yeah.
I feel like you're always here too. Like
Yeah,
we're always
I'm
here
always
to
here.
just to chat,
I'm always here.
to vent. It's okay.
We're all humans at the end of the day.
That's true. That is true.
Well, we are so excited for Bloom coming this September 5th. Make sure to get your tickets, and there is a special coupon code in the description down below. So make sure to check that out. That coupon code might just be SLA Podcast 10. SLA, the Self Love Archives, SLA Podcast 10.
Get them now. Seriously. You don't want to miss.
No, it's going to be a really, really fun event, and I am so excited for it. So grateful for you being here and for being a part of Bloom. And I'm looking forward to not just blooming together in our careers, but also blooming with you guys. I love you tons.
Bye.
Thank you again for being here, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.